Alright, today we're going to be looking at psychoanalytic criticism and in Lois Tyson's book, Critical Theory Today. And what I wanted to focus on was, for example, on the first page of the psychoanalytic chapter, she has a sentence that says, if you've ever told an angry friend, don't take it out on me, you are accusing that friend of displacement. And then she says, displacement, which is the psychoanalytic name for transferring our anger with one person onto another person. So you might be angry at Joe, but you take it out on Annette. That's displacement. Displacement is what we call an analytic term. If you could say, for example, I want to look at displacement in Great Gatsby, what your reader would expect then is that you are going to explain how you're using displacement if you're using it in the classical psychoanalytic way that Lois defines it, and that you then are going to show in what ways displacement functions in the novel. A very, very, very basic idea, but that's how it works. She then mentions other concepts such as sibling rivalry, inferiority complexes, and defense mechanisms. So that if you were to write an essay on sibling rivalry, you would then need to define it, not according to your own understanding, but according to the understanding of psychoanalytic criticism. If you then wanted to refine that definition or to alter it in some way, then you would say that. Inferiority complexes, again, you would need to look at it in relation to psychoanalytic criticism. How is it defined? And then use it that way, or explain why or you are not going to use it that way. Defense mechanisms. Of course, there is more than one defense mechanism. Displacement is a defense mechanism. What is a defense mechanism? What are we defending? How do they operate? Those are things you would need to explain in an essay that looked at defense mechanisms in literature. If we look a little bit further down on that first page, she has a sentence that goes, and of course, if psychoanalysis can help us better understand human behavior, then it must certainly be able to help us understand literary texts which are about human behavior. And of course fiction is about human behavior, because fiction is about characters that are put into different situations. Authors have access to all sorts of material when they write fiction, and some of it is about how to write fiction. For example, books like What Would Your Character Do? And this goes through ideas about what the psychological makeup is of your character, and what does that mean that character would do in certain situations, so that they remain true to their own psychological makeup. Because you can't make a character do anything that you want it to do, because your reader won't believe it. It has to be true for that character, that it makes sense for your reader that that type of person would do that type of thing. Another one is, for example, 45 master characters and mythic models for creating original characters. This also goes through different motifs. Do you remember that word from your narrative theory from English 1 to 30? It goes through different types of characters that are common in literature and that have been common in literature for a long time, and what your reader will expect of those characters. You don't always have to do what your reader would expect, but you have to know what your reader would expect so that you know when you're breaking it, and so that you can break it in a believable way, or in a way that you then have control over, so that you don't confuse your reader. Another type of book that writers can use is the Emotion Thesaurus, a writer's guide to character expression. For example, if someone is hurt and they're suffering grief or mental pain or feeling wounded or aggrieved in some way, what are some physical signs of that? Eyes widening, yet brows are furrowed. Swallowing hard, lowering the head, a slow, disbelieving head shake, a trembling chin, mouth falling open, flinching. There's all sorts of physical signs that we give of different feelings that we have, whether it's a physical feeling or an emotional feeling. And writers have to use the signals that we would recognize from everyday life. Otherwise, we don't understand what the writer is trying to tell us. Alright, because YouTube is giving me some problems today, I'm going to stop here and then create 2 or 3 files for this bit.